Red Dwarf is a giant spaceship. Baldric is disgusting. Play it cool, my son, play it cool. Hello everyone, it is I, Mark S.W, and welcome to part 3 of my 5 favourite comedy shows from certain decades. I've done the 60s, the 70s and the 80s, and in this video I'm going to do the 90s. Before I begin, you guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and don't forget to check out the first 2 parts of this series that I'm doing. As usual, I can't do clips because of copyright, but I can do screenshots if YouTube will allow me to, and there may be 1 or 2 spoiler alerts. Now, last week when I did the 80 comedies, I talked about Blackadder, starring Rowan Atkinson, who many of you may know as Mr. Bean. In fact, Mr. Bean was started in the 90s. So that's what Rowan Atkinson is famous for. But there is another series in the 90s he did called The Thin Blue Line. He plays a police inspector called Raymond Fowler, and he's in charge of the uniformed police officers at Gatsworth Police Station. He's a very serious and mature person, kind of like Captain Mannering from Dad's Army. So this is a unique acting opportunity for Rowan Atkinson. In Mr. Bean, he's silly and funny. In Blackadder, he's devious and cunning and smart. Whereas in The Thin Blue Line, he's mature, sensible, clever as well, but doesn't understand about youth, so to speak. He sort of doesn't accept the fact that the world is changing and now young people prefer to take drugs and alcohol rather than stay at home and play Monopoly. Some of the episodes of The Thin Blue Line are about police work, and some of them are about Raymond's relationship with his girlfriend, Sergeant Patricia Dawkins. There are also some episodes where Raymond is in a sort of rival situation with Detective Inspector Grimm from the CID department. Unlike Fowler, Grimm takes his police work maybe a bit too seriously, and he gets overexcited. You could say he watches too many American police shows. He always wants to get straight down to business. He doesn't want to mess about, or as he likes to say, no fannying about. It's a series worth checking out. Like I say, it's a unique opportunity to see Rowan Atkinson's more serious side of his character. And there are some serious episodes, like there's a couple that involve kids, and 2 of his officers, they get into trouble, but it all turns out fine in the end, so yeah, definitely worth having a look. The next comedy show is one I was introduced to when I was at college. I mentioned also in the 80s video, there's a comedy series called The Young Ones, featuring the late Rick Mayall and the currently still with us Adrian Edmondson. Well, they're also well known for doing another comedy series called Bottom. If you're a sensible, mature, boring person, then I wouldn't recommend this comedy. But if you are into immature comedy, then I highly recommend this one. It was made at its time, if you know what I mean. Some of the jokes may not be appropriate these days, but they were back then. Rick and Adrian play 2 characters, Richie and Eddie. Those are their nicknames. Their full names are Richard, and Edward Elizabeth Hitler. Basically, they're 2 losers who live in a flat that's dirty, and most of their jokes involve either toilet humour, sex, and there's lots of violence involved, and I mean lots of violence, lots of fighting. It's mainly cartoony type violence, so stuff that you could never survive in real life, but somehow these guys do. Amazingly, Bottom is a very popular series because it's had its own feature film at Guest House Paradiso, where the 2 are running a hotel right next to a nuclear power station. And there have been 5 live tours of Bottom. So Rick and Adrian have been around the country putting on 5 different stage shows. And they've been recorded, so they are available to watch. The first show is from Southampton, the second show Oxford, third is Bristol, 4th Nottingham, and 5th Southend. My third favourite comedy from the 90s is The Vicar of Dibley. Dawn French plays a vicar called Geraldine, and she lives in a small village called Dibley. In the past, usually men are vicars, but now women can be vicars thanks to the change of rules in the Church of England in 1992. The only person who doesn't approve of this is David Horton. He's head of the parish council and also the local councillor for the Conservative Party, who, as we all know, are total bastards. He also doesn't like Alice, the verger, because she's the village idiot. But his son Hugo likes Alice, and later in the series, the two of them get married. Like The Thin Blue Line, there are some scenes where it's very serious. Like in the 2005 New Year's Day special, they talk about the 20th anniversary of Live Aid. So The Vicar of Dibley is a sort of religious comedy series, and there is another one, but this takes place in Ireland. I think you know which one I'm referring to. My fourth favourite comedy is Father Ted. This takes place on a small island just off the coast of Ireland. It's called Craggy Island. The series is about a priest called Father Ted Crilly. He lives at a parochial house with two other priests, Father Dougal Maguire. Like Alice, he's a complete idiot, only maybe 10 times worse, and Father Jack Haggett. And he's very well known for saying 4 words: drink, girls, arse, and feck, which is the Irish equivalent of the F word.
Drink, feck, arse, girls!
Also living with them is the housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle. First name unknown. One of her main duties is to serve tea, but if you don't want any tea, she will take no for an answer. She will keep asking. Best to say yes. Unlike some of the comedies I've just mentioned, there are no serious scenes in Father Ted, and the scenes that are trying to be serious, they're just very funny and silly. Like, for example, there's one involving an exploding milk float. Don't ask, just watch. Other adventures Father Ted has, he's usually having competitions with his rival, Dick Byrne, so they're either performing songs, playing football, or having a giving things up for Easter competition. And there are times where Ted is getting into trouble with his boss, Bishop Len Brennan. When Bishop Brennan gets angry, boy are you in trouble. And finally, my fifth favourite comedy series, this one is from America, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This is how I discovered Will Smith. Now, I know you're going to go, we know what The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is all about. You don't have to give us the details. Yeah, I know, but this is for the benefit of those who don't know the series, the younger audience who will be old enough to watch it, if you know what I mean. Way back in the 80s and the 90s, Will Smith used to be known as the Fresh Prince, because fresh meant cool, so he's the Prince of Cool. And he lived in West Philadelphia with his mum, Vi. Will spends most of his time playing basketball, flirting with girls, hanging out with his mates, and going to parties and having fun. But sometimes he can get in trouble, usually in fights with other people, or getting arrested by the police. Because of this, Vi decides that Will should move to Bel-Air in Los Angeles and go and live with his Aunt Vivian, who married a lawyer called Philip Banks, but of course we all know him as Uncle Phil. They're rich, they're well respected, and they have 4 kids: Hillary, Carlton, Ashley, and Nikki. And they also have a butler from England called Jeffrey. The whole idea of sending Will to live with his relatives in Bel-Air is so that he'll learn to be more sensible and mature, and he'll work hard and straighten out. Yeah, right, like that's gonna happen. Throughout the series, Will is still getting into trouble, and he makes Uncle Phil very angry. Now, I mentioned Bishop Brennan gets angry, and that means trouble. But when Uncle Phil gets angry, run. Just run. Will has many other adventures, sometimes with his cousins, mainly Carlton because both of them are the same age, and his best friend Jazz. Jazz is well known for 3 things. 1, his famous handshake. 2, flirting with Hillary. And 3, getting thrown out of the mansion by Uncle Phil. But again, like some of the comedies I've mentioned, this one does have serious moments. So it talks about things like racism, drugs, gun crime, and there's even an episode where Will is reunited with his father, who abandoned him when he was just 5. But it's a very famous American comedy series and it's worth a watch. I remember they used to show episodes on BBC Two, and in fact all the episodes are available on BBC iPlayer. And like I said, this is how I discovered Will Smith. So if you want to watch something that involves Will's early acting days, then I recommend Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And those are my 5 favourite comedy shows from the 90s. Next week will be the last part where I'll be talking about my favourite comedies from the 2000s and 2010s. So if you're looking forward to that, do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you know when I upload the video. Do check out the comedy shows I've listed in this video, and if you know a comedy show that started in the 90s, do leave it in the comments below and I'll take a look at it. So thanks again for watching guys, and I'll see you next time. Over and out.